So for the MRP webinar, we have the following agenda. We will have a look at the MRP in business processes, which means what is the considered demand by the MRP. Of course, we will have a look at the one of the business processes we are able to manage with Beas, and to see where MRP is able to interact. The main values at the level of item master data related, of course, with the MRP. We'll see the main MRP settings in different places, and of course to see how it works. At the end we will reproduce a scenario where we see how the MRP is making the calculation, and then how can we create production orders and purchasing orders with the MRP. So starting with what is the demand is considered by the MRP, we can see here in a blue color some of the documents we know from Business One, like sales orders or minimum inventory level, which is not, of course, a document, but it is a condition of the items, and of course the forecast in Business One. Those values are coming from Business One and of course are considered by the MRP. There is another places where the demand is coming, like a pre-calculation that could be created and related with a sales order, and of course current work orders are created in Beas. Those two documents here are related with the let's say Beas functionality. If we have a look at the business process, in this case this is an engineer to order business process, which you know is normally starting from a sales quotation, and then pre-calculation is involved because of the specific customers' requirements and so on. There are basically three areas in most of the business processes. I have selected engineer to order, but it's basically similar if we talk about make to order or make to stock. Of course, the complete setting of the MRP will depend on the business process of the customers. We will see later how it is. So there is a master data area. Some values, of course, coming from master data are considered by the MRP, like minimum inventory level and some others we will later have a look. Once we do the calculation after an engineer process, for example, so we have a pre-calculation, then this is a value. Those values are, of course, also considered by the MRP. Of course, MRP is also considering values directly from the sales order, but depending on the business process, if there is a pre-calculation or not, then the result will be other. Once we create a work order, could be because of a sales order or could be by stock in other business process, then we have a specific data of the item inside of the work order that could be modified. If you do any modification at the level of the work order, then of course MRP will consider these changes in order to provide additional production requests, if any, and purchasing requests that could be created later as a purchase order. Let's start from item master data. Okay, what are the main values we should consider at the level of item master data related, of course, with the MRP? Let's go to Business One. Let's go to screen, for example, item structure. Let's have a look at one of the items, for example, this B1. 7272. If I do double click here and then I go to the master data, item master data, if we go to planning data, then we see first a planning method should be this considered by the MRP, yes or no. Basically, this is what this planning method means. If you do not mark the items as MRP, no matter if you run the MRP, of course, you will see no any result of this item. Auto multiple means If I say, for example, 12 here, means that we plan to produce this item in dozens, okay? So the system will always try to create work orders in multiples of 12, in this case, like 12, 24, 36, and so on. Minimum order amount is also considered by the MRP. Of course, it depends on the type of the item. If we are talking about a production item, which is the case of this one I have created here, then the system will create a work order with the size at least like the minimum order amount. If we are talking about purchase items, then of course the system will consider what is the exact demand of the item, but if there is a minimum order amount that is different, then the system will suggest to purchase at least the minimum order amount. Lead time is normally used at the level of the purchase items. Okay, if you set, for example, 5 days, means once you create a purchase order, your supplier at least will need 5 days to provide the goods. However, it is possible at the MRP to consider the lead time instead of the cycle time. Cycle time is the time of the operations. If we say I have a welding operation for some hours and I have an assembly operation for some other hours, then this is the time normally the MRP is considering. At the end, any company who really need to schedule the work orders and so on will use the times of the operation. However, it is possible to use the lead time. I will show you some of the parameters that are related with this. Accumulation is the way to show the results in the MRP. If you say details, and there is, for example, several sales orders of this item, different work orders, and so on, then in a fully detailed way, line by line, you will see the different documents are related with the balance of this item after the MRP calculation. But you can say to the system, well, it is okay to see simply the results grouped by days. So I'm not interested in to know if I have 3 customer orders in one day. It is okay for me if I simply know what is the total quantity is needed for one day, or for 1 week, or for 1 month, or simply the total. So depending on the detail you mark here, then you will see the results in the MRP. You can use by default a priority, which of course could be considered also for work orders, but then in MRP, in the case you sort by work orders. And MPS is Master Production Schedule. You can decide which items, in this case this is not one, but you simply can mark or not, which items should be considered for a Master Production Schedule. I will show you in the MRP a difference between normal items in MRP and an item, for example, I have selected for Master Production Schedule. Of course, some of the values at the level of master data are quite important here, like those we have on inventory data. Minimum quantity, of course, a predefined warehouse, it's a mandatory value you should consider here to get the correct calculation from MRP. And of course, the type of production item, if it is make to order, if it is a make to stock, the results of the MRP will be different, of course, depending on the business process, or could be different depending on the business process. So really you should take care about what is the customer requirements in terms of business processes to parameterize the MRP and to, of course, manage a full MRP strategy. Okay, let's come back to our PowerPoint. Let's have a look now at the MRP Wizard. So MRP Wizard is the tool we are going to use to parameterize, to make the full setup of the MRP based on different scenarios. So if I go again to Business One, let's close here this screen. Let's go to the menu MRP and then MRP Wizard. Of course, as you know, when you are using Beas, you are using the extended MRP. This is an MRP2, which means we are able to consider the capacity or the situation of the results. And at the end of the calculation of the MRP, you will see what is the status, what is the situation, how busy are your different resources. So this is the MRP screen, where, as I mentioned, you are able to consider different scenarios. You have full MRP is one scenario, another one is on an example is Carlos. You can create all the scenarios you want. Depending, of course, on the setting of each scenario, you will get some results or others. At the end, the balance will be one or the other. If we click here in Edit, then the first we see here is the scheduling tab. This is the code of the scenario, the description of my scenario. It is possible to include a forecast we have created in Business One directly in the MRP calculation. Also, in the case you are considering master production schedule, then you are able to include a forecast in Business One, but related with items are at the level of item master data have this MPS value market, the one we saw before. Okay, so in this case I have included both. If I click here in the forecast, you see I have two available forecasts, means it should be in the range of the date where we are. It is possible not only to include one forecast, you are also able to include two different forecasts. Okay, so you can include some customers are creating different forecasts because of item groups or because of period, like a forecast for Q1, a forecast for Q2. You are able to include both forecasts or all the forecasts you need in one single calculation. If you click in MPS, in this case I have marked these bins because I have created another forecast. Let me click here, bins. This is for one item, 3110026, which have this value MPS included at the level of item master data. So you will see how it is different than the normal forecast. It is also, there is another value called summary here. You see I have marked normal, but you can also click in months. What does it mean? Well, in the case you are using a forecast, then the result or the details in the screen of the MRP will be summarized by month. If you click in normally, then you will see all the details. You can create forecast with days or forecast with weeks, for example. Okay, so if you click normal, it will depend on how the forecast is created. If you click in months, no matter if you have a forecast by week, then you will see the balance by months of all the forecast. Deliver by, it's quite important because here we say I would like to consider all the demand is basically in the system for the next 300 days. You can put here the number of days you want. If there is any demand, for example, for it's scheduled for 400 days ahead, this will not be considered by the MRP. You have two options. You can include, you can include a number of days, or if you delete this value here, or you put 0, then it is possible to set up a date. The problem if you set up a date here is that if you forget to change the date, then the planning horizon of the MRP will be, of course, reduced because you say, I don't know, I will consider all the demand until 31st of December of this year. But if you do not do any modification here, you will analyze the results until 31st, of course, of April. But if you are in August and then you do not change, then you will only consider some months of demand. For that reason, I used to put something like 300 days. You can filter by default how to view the result of the MRP because of only a range of work orders, a range of items, some item groups, material groups, item properties, employees, and so on. If you click here in Calculate Automatically, means MRP could be calculated in an automatic way. Let's say all the days at 6 o'clock in the morning, or 2 times a day, or something like that. How to perform this? First of all, you mark this in all the scenarios you would like to calculate automatically. Once you do that, you can look for, this is the manage server function, the server of Beas, where you have different possibilities, and one of the possibilities is, of course, to to plan some activities. If I click here, you see I'm able to calculate the MRP by default automatically, to calculate a batch pre-calculation, and to do some other activities in a planned way. If I click here in Edit, then you see, okay, this is the activity to calculate the MRP automatically. I would like to do it, you can say here, okay, from 4 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. you can make the calculation once, 2, 3, and so on. This could be in hours and so on. And if you click here in execution, there is like a small script. It's available, okay? Of course, if you have experience, then you can expand the script depending on what you need. But basically, this is only what you need to make this calculation automatically. Here is the condition. I would like to make this calculation all the days, or we would like only to make this calculation from Tuesday to Wednesday, Saturday and Sunday not, but also not on Monday and Thursday. I don't know. It's only an example. You can parameterize this to get a message, and then some additional buttons or statistics about the last calculation and so on. So keep in mind that you should manage the Beas server to plan your activities, and the MRP will execute all the MRP scenarios of these already marked. If we go now to Detail tab, then we have all the different elements we are going to consider at the MRP calculation for our scenario number 1. Basically, we'll click here and expand to see most of them. So if we see, for example, warehouse stock is marked, okay, at the end you can mark or disable whatever you need here. Of course, if you would like to consider the stock is in the different warehouses, then you need to mark this. If you would like to consider minimum inventory, then you should mark this. If this is not marked, so have a look at this at the following option, minimum inventory breakdown. This is not available because this is fully related with minimum inventory. But if you mark it, then you have this possibility. What is minimum inventory breakdown? The system is able to, for example, I need to produce, because of a sales order, 5 units of one item. But the minimum inventory level of this item I should produce is 20 pieces, 20 units. Of course, the demand from minimum inventory is higher than the other one. Would you like to consider also the minimum inventory level value for the purchase item? So should be the calculation for the purchase item consider the minimum inventory for the production item, for the further item? So then yes or not. You can activate to allow stock transfers in the system. There are also, of course, all the production documents that could be related with the calculation here in MRP. Like, would you like to consider goods received from production? So the item should come because a production order is already created. Would you like to consider the good issues in production? Blocked production orders. You know, you can set up a different status of the work orders in the system. So depending on the status, if it is blocked or not, then you are able to consider it or not. Planned orders, production consider. This is again related with the status. Consider the production demand. This is like the production request or production requirement. You can create in the MRP a production order, or you can create a production request. Then the question is, should we consider in the balance or in the calculation the production request as well as the other work orders are in the system? Then should we consider, sorry, this is the planned order. Yeah, exactly. Then this is production demand, is the production request. How should we consider the breakdown? We are able to define this by item, but by default, you can say all the results should come by day, by week, by month in the detail of the screen in the MRP, or no breakdown means we'll not get the full details, of course. You are able here to consider, of course, as well, all the sales documents can participate in the MRP calculation, like sales order. What about unapproved customer orders? Would you like to consider it, yes or not? Customer orders, reserve invoice, yes or not? Recurring sales orders, blanket agreements, and consider calculation. I talked before about the business process. In case you are considering, for example, engineer to order business process, normally when engineer to order business process is, or when a customer have this business process, then pre-calculations are created with the sales orders. So the question here is, should we consider the pre-calculation inside the sales order at the moment we run the MRP, yes or not? If you do not mark this and you have an item in a sales order and then there is a pre-calculation in the sales order, the system will simply consider the standard structure of the item, will not consider the content of this pre-calculation. If we go down, then we see here, well, all the purchase documents we can consider, purchase orders, blocked purchase orders, purchase quotations, quotation only to evaluate, but then to show but not to evaluate, sub-purchase request, blanket agreement, purchase orders, but draft purchase orders, recurring orders, purchase order reserve invoice, to follow manual returns, or the purchase request, yes or not. And again, would you like to consider the view of all these items or documents in a daily way, weekly, months, or fully detailed because you would like to consider the complete stuff. Something important here in the MRP, normally this value calculates cycle time for assembly is marked. When we saw the item master data, it was there is a value we know which is lead time. If you would like to consider the lead time market in this field for the production items instead of the time is defined in the different operations, then you can disable this. But of course, if you disable this, you are not able to really schedule, and the system will simply consider this lead time. Also, it is not possible to run the MRP2 functions here in the Beas MRP. Like to see what is the situation of the resources, because at the end there is no link anymore with the work centers or the resources, because this is coming from the operations. And if you disable this function, then you will not consider the operations anymore for the MRP calculation. To consider link to operations, this is related, of course, with the material. You know, in the bill of materials, you are able to relate items with operations. So MRP is able to consider, well, imagine I have a work order with two operations. Operation 1 needs 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. The second operation needs another 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. One material is related with the first operation, and one material is related with the second operation. You are able to, if you mark this, MRP is able to say, hey, you need to have this item on stock at least on Monday because the first operation will start on Monday. But for the second item, you can purchase it later because you will need it for Wednesday. Okay. If we go down, then we have some other values we can consider for the calculation, like to consider order multiples or not. This is related with this value we saw before in MRP. Then to consider goods received for productions. Then to consider, let's say, demand is coming for the next 999 days. If there is any document later, then of course will not be considered. Production receipt reservation. Would you like to consider then the values related with the reservation when we talk about production, a yes or not. Then reservation is an additional functionality, we provide to SAP Business One. Include warehouse stock, yes or not. To consider goods received from purchase order, yes or not. To consider purchase request, yes or not. When we talk about inventory here, then we see balance reservation consider. Again, this is not only then in this case for the production received, this is all for all the items. The system is able to reduce from the calculation those items are already reserved because you cannot use it, for some order, for example, or because this is already reserved for a customer, okay? Consider warehouse location filters in transaction. This is related with bin locations, if you would like to consider it or not. Dependent requirement of issues with evaluation. This is, for example, if I have a sales order, okay, and the sales order have, of course, one item, and in the field where you mark the warehouse, you mark a warehouse is not here selected for the MRP calculation, then MRP will not consider this value, okay, but we will show it anyway, okay, so depending on what you mark, then you will see that or not, but the valuation will not happen. I will show you, of course, also an example. Would you like to consider blocked batches as available? Yes or not. Gross calculation is another function when you use forecast. Imagine there is a forecast of thousands of items, and this is a forecast for a complete year, and is a weekly forecast. Of course, the quantity of information of data in the forecast is big, especially if you have complex structures and the full explosion of the bill of material is very big. If you mark gross calculation, then it will be the calculation of the MRP will be reduced. Why? Because this will be based on the lead time instead of the cycle time. So gross calculation is also related with the cycle time. You don't mark the gross calculation if you have this value here marked. Okay, this is available, of course, for that. And you should consider if you click in gross calculation, because then the cycle time will be not considered, then of course you are not also able to enable the resource scheduling. This one is the field you should mark in the case you are interested in to have a look at the resource graphic view about the status of your different resources here once you run the MRP. Another one, it's a price calculation. This also have some effect in the performance of the calculation. So if it is market, then the MRP takes a little bit more time than if it is not. Price calculate means, one item could have one price. For example, one purchase item could have one price different depending on the supplier, okay? So if you mark this, of course, then the MRP will check, okay, I need this item to be purchased. Who is the predefined supplier? Is this one? Okay, now let's go to the corresponding price list in Business One and then get the price. If you do not mark this, then MRP will not do this searching of the price. Then the system will make the selection of the price at the moment you decide to create a purchase order, okay? So sooner or later the calculation will happen, but if you need to run a big MRP and probably will only do some orders, then better is to disable this because at the end you will have it later. In terms of authorization, you are able here to select who is the user, for example, is able to who is the user who is able to do modification at the setup level. What about the users are able to make the setup? What about if there is nothing? This means like all. Okay, for that reason, then of course I'm able to do all. Or then to calculation. So it could be that you have only some users are able to have a look at the view but are not able to perform the calculation, or some others are able to do the calculation but not the setup, and so on and so on. So here you can set up the authorization level for the users in the MRP. If we go to the warehouse tab, here's where you say to the MRP which warehouses should be considered in the calculation. Depends, of course, on the previous details you market. But I will give you an example of real life. Customer, for example, are having quality control processes. Usually they have a warehouse for quality control. Items are available on quality control warehouse, are waiting for an inspection. So if the item is waiting for an inspection, at that time you don't know if it is okay or not okay. So normally you are not considering these items as stock valid items. Or it could be, of course, if you have a rejected warehouse or quarantine warehouse or something similar, where items goes to quality control and the result is negative, then those items will be allocated in the rejected warehouse. And normally, because you rejected those items, of course, you don't want to consider that in the calculation. In any case, here you decide if you mark it or not. Okay? So, this is the setting at the MRP scenario level. If we go to our PowerPoint, then of course we have another place to where we have some additional settings. This is in the Beas General Configuration Wizard. Okay, so let's have a look at the settings we have at the level of the Configuration Wizard and see the relevant one. Okay, so let's close here. Let's keep our scenario open it because of course we will use it later. Let's go to System Initialization and then Configuration Wizard. Here in the Configuration Wizard, of course, as you know, we have the possibility to make the full setup of the database, not only including values related with the Beas transactions and so on. If you click in sales or, for example, business partners, all these functions are coming or are related, or most of them are related with Business One. So if you click in any of those, then of course you will open, in this case, a Business One screen. But at the end, the target is that you are able in only one place to make the full configuration of your database. The one we will check today is related with the MRP, and this is at the level of material management. If I click here in material management, then of course there are many different settings regarding or related with the transactions with materials we are able to do in Beas and Business One. But the one we will check now is this MRP Wizard. Okay, if I click here, the first we see is what is the default order recommendation. If I click here, then I have full MRP and the Carlos scenario. Okay, in this case, my, let's say, default MRP calculation is that one. This is, why is this relevant? Again, I have here two different scenarios, and the default one is for inventory history. If I go to, let's have a look at one of the items, for example, let's go to item structure and then, for example, look for our B1 item. And if I click with the right button, then one of the options, by the way, is available at the level of sales order, or if you are on inventory in the item master data, you have, instead of right click, then you have a button. Anyway, if I click here in inventory history, the first screen we see give us information about what is the warehouse stock, what about the sales order, what about the available. And all these details we see below, forecast, sales orders are related with this item, and more and more and more, are coming for the last MRP calculation. But for the last MRP calculation of the default scenario. So depending on the one you have selected as default, then of course you will see one or other result at the inventory history screen in the items. Okay, so now we have three main areas. We have calculation, so all the fields or all the parameters we should consider for the calculation in the MRP. How to manage forecast in the MRP calculation. We have different strategies when we are using forecast, and of course the view what are the parameters to set up the view once you finish your MRP calculation and you open the MRP screen, or I mean the order recommendation screen. So if I click here in the calculation, then some values appear, like for example, average lead time. In this one I have 1 day. This is value is affecting the delivery date of the customers in the MRP, but not only in the MRP, also in the work order. So I will give you an example. If you create a sales order in Business One for one item and the delivery date is 30 of the month, so last day of the month. If you have 1 day here, you can put 1, 2, 5, 10, or whatever you need. I have 1. If you have 1, the MRP will consider that you are planning to deliver this item not on 30 of the month, but then on 29 of the month. So the system is like taking one time, let's call it, for more something like security, it could be. But this is affecting MRP, and this is affecting also the work order creation from a sales order, which means, again, we have our sales order in Business One. If I click with the right button to create work orders from the sales order, the system will reduce 1 day, okay? So will not consider the delivery date of Business One, will consider that delivery date minus 1 day, okay? Replacement security is an additional time you would like to add to this calculation, but this is only affecting MRP. This is not affecting average lead time, which is also, as I mentioned, affecting the work order creation from the sales orders, okay? If you click, for example, 1 day, then the system in total will consider 2 days from the delivery date to the finish date of the work order, okay? This one is a quite interesting one. This is could receive idle time work days for purchase item. Imagine the MRP is making the calculation. Again, we have our sales order for 30 of the month. The system is reducing 1 day, so the work order is created for 29 to finish on 29 of the month. You have, of course, some operations, and then you need to start your work order on, let's say, 25th of the month. If there are some materials related with the operation you need to start on 25th of the month, then MRP will tell you, well, you need to purchase those items to have it on stock on 25th of the month. And if you have a lead time of this purchase item, then the MRP will tell you you need it for 25th, and to have it on 25th, you need to create the purchase order, let's say, on 21 of the month, okay? But if you include like 1, 2, or 3 days here, the system will also reduce some time to try to force your supplier to give you the items some days before you really need it in production. So this is like a security time you can use for the purchase items, okay? So this is then to try to receive the items and to have it on stock some days before you really need it in production, okay? Priority control is simply to sort the items depending on the priority in a ascending way or descending way. External operation calculate. This is by default not marked, okay? In fact, this is a function is not used today, but this is still available on MRP because of compatibility reasons. Very previous or very old versions of Beas were considering the external operations here because the functionality for the external operations was very simple in the past. Now is not the case, okay? So we were able to include it in the MRP. You can mark it anyway, but the default value is not marked. In fact, if you click here in the help, okay, and then I'm going here, you see warning, this function is provided for compatibility reasons and should not be activated, okay? So this is not useful anymore, but for compatibility reason is marked. Here we have a message, like a warning message telling you something about the data check, okay? Data check is a quite important and useful tool. many different conditions must be considered by the system to have good results and good calculations and good performance at the end in production, MRP, and more. If I click in data check, then the system will perform the data check and show me the situation if there I have some missing values that could be, of course, could affect the MRP, but also some other processes. This data check is performing now, and then we should see in some seconds the result of the data check. For support purposes, if you create a ticket in Beas and there is an error, not only for MRP, this is also related with many other things. For example, there is a message like, for some items, the default warehouse has not been set. And this is quite important. If I click here in Edit, then the system is able to show you, oh, okay, this item had not any default warehouse marked. So you should go. If I do double click here, and then you see there is no breakdown, there is no unit of measure for bill of material. So there are some other values probably are here in the data check. And if I go to inventory data, there is no any primary warehouse. Those values are quite important for the MRP. So really take care about the data check, because some values are, of course, needed to make a good calculation. If we don't know the bill of material unit of measure, for example, then MRP is not able to know if a conversion between unit of measure is needed. So the result in the MRP could be, of course, wrong. Okay, other part is related with the forecast, how the forecast should be considered for the MRP calculation. Okay, if I come here, then we see here, the first value we see here is to consider the forecast. How to consider the forecast? Should be based on SAP Business One standard, or should be like planned customer orders. If we click in based on SAP Business One standard, the system will consider values are in the past, of course, okay? But also will reduce, for example, imagine you have a forecast for 100 units, okay, for this month, and you have one sales order for 50 units. If you run the calculation, then MRP will say at the end of the month, in total you will need 100 pieces. 50 pieces because of a sales order, and another 50 pieces for the remaining forecast, okay, because the system is reducing the forecast with this sales order of 50 units we have. If not, then it will not be considered, and at the end you could have 150 pieces at the end of the month, okay. Another one is pre-call time for forecast. This is like to add an average delivery time for the items at the moment you run the forecast. Requirement in the period, this is like descending or constant here. If we say descending, for example, which is the one I have marked here, and we have a forecast again of 100 pieces, and we are at mid of the month, so let's say we are at the 15th of the month, then the system will reduce the size of the forecast until the half. So we are like considering, well, if we are on the half of the month, then we need the half of the quantity. If you put constant, then simply the system, no matter if you are on 15th of the month or in 25th of the month, then the system will consider the full quantity of the forecast and will not do any reduction here. Here you should consider, if you mark this one past consider, is related with the sales order. Imagine you have a sales order you have created. We are now in May, middle of the month, and you have a sales order on April, and you have also a forecast. Would you like to consider this old sales order also to affect the calculation of the forecast? Yes or not? So then you can mark it here. Would you like to consider also customer orders where already deliver it in a partial way. If you have 50 pieces in a sales order, you produce it 25 and you deliver it to the customer 25 pieces, what should be the MRP calculation result? Should be another 25. Or if you do not mark this, then the system will ask you again to produce another 50 pieces. These consumption methods, direction, days back and days forward, those are the standard settings you already know from SAP Business One, are of course here included to have the same performance in the MRP. If I click in the view area here in the configuration wizard for the MRP, then we will make the setup of the way we would like to see the results in the order recommendation screen. One of the values here is, for example, choose a supplier. The default value is all, which means imagine we are going to purchase an item and we have in our database 100 suppliers. If I click in the drop-down to select a supplier, the system will show us those 100 suppliers. But another way to do it is to consider a catalog in Business One. So then if you click in the drop-down, you will see only the suppliers are available in this catalog. So only the suppliers are able to deliver this particular material you are analyzing here in MRP. Or you can use price list. Price list means a special price list in SAP Business One. So if you build special price list in SAP Business One, MRP is able to consider this functionality as well. Okay. To update directly the results means if you have a balance in the MRP is recommending you to purchase some pieces, okay, and then you make a purchase order, and this, and of course considering this balance, and imagine once you accept the recommendation of the MRP by creating this purchase order, the balance is of course 0. By marking this update directly means would you like to see now the new balance once you make this transaction, which means once you make, for example, this purchase order, would you like to see in the screen the updated value, yes or not? I have it marked, so we will see that later. By marking here the work order summary function, then we are able to create one work order for different assemblies. This is the summarized work order functionality we have, but then it's to have it or not directly from MRP. And then we have some different standard possibilities for filtering in the MRP screen, but you are able to create your query and then create your own filter based in some particular criteria of your different customer. Here you have an example of one you can, for example, create. Okay. By coming back to our MRP PowerPoint, then let's have a look at the different transactions we are able to do, of course, from the MRP once the calculation is done. If we activate the MRP2 function to have a look at the resources, then we are able to have a look at the ROVCOT capacity planning. We will see how the resources situation is. We are able to create purchase order, which is a standard document in Business One. We are able to create purchase request. We have our purchase request screen in MRP since years. And this is, of course, the one we are able to manage from the MRP. We are able to create direct work orders, or we are able to create work order request. This is similar like purchase request, but regarding, of course, production. From the purchase request, for example, later, it is possible to create different documents. It is possible to create quotations in Business One for purchasing. It is also possible to create draft documents or directly, finally, the purchase order. In newest versions of MRP, it is also possible to create directly a quotation. We will see that in the screen. If we go to our system again, then based on the different settings we see we are able to do in the scenario, but also those we are able to consider in the configuration wizard, then we are ready to make an example, okay? I will run this MRP, but before of that, I will show you what are the values or the demand I will consider. If I go to sales and then sales orders, click with the last to see the last one, I have sales order for frozen beans item 50. Okay, if I click with the right button and then I go to the item master extended, so the Beas screen for item master data, and I go to planning data, you see this item is marked as an MPS 1. Okay, and I have created a forecast. Sorry, not here. I have created a forecast called pins for some items. Now you will see what is the difference between MPS and the standard MRP calculation with the forecast. When we are using when we are using a master production schedule, the MRP will simply consider those values here. We will not consider any value of sales in sales orders and so on. So we will focus on our master production schedule, which is this one included here in the forecast. So, and this is one of the values we will see in the MRP calculation. And another one is a standard sales order for an item, which is not an MPS one, it's a normal one, which I have with 20 units. Also, I have another forecast. In this case, let me have a look at the different forecasts I have. Yeah, I have it here. For different weeks, 22, 3, and all those weeks, you see the values we have as demand, okay? So if I click in Edit, and then I go to my scenario, we see we have a forecast for the B172 included, and also I have included the master production schedule for the beans. I would like to show you something. It's regarding the months. Okay, I would like to summarize the values in a monthly way. The forecast I have created for the B172.72 is a weekly one, but we will see how the MRP will show us the results in a monthly way, no matter of the forecast is created in a weekly way. So it's done. Let's make a new calculation. If you click here, then the system will ask you for to start the calculation. If you have errors in the data check, you will receive a message here, hey, you have some errors in the data check you didn't check. It is important to analyze those errors because the results of the MRP could be wrong, okay, based on the setting. So you really should take care about the data check. In fact, you should know if you if you create a ticket in the support portal and there is something we are not able to reproduce and the support department requests the database of the customer, the support team will check is the result of the data check. If you have several errors, the support team will not do anything, will return to you the database, and the first will say is, please fix everything is in the data check and send us back the database, okay? Because some of the problems you probably could report are because the data is not okay, and then of course you should take care about it. So I did my calculation, okay? If I click in order recommendation, then of course I will see everything I need to purchase and everything I will need to produce. If I go to resources, then because of the MRP2 functionality, I'm able to see what is the situation of the resources. You are able now to see each one of the resources or simply to select one, or you can click in the resources here and to filter, like this one, welding, sewing machine, this one, and yeah, well, probably others. Okay, so I will click in update. And for example, you see it looks like in one day I have a problem with the capacity. This is all coming from a forecast, but there is another way, and we see a green color because of a sales order. If I click in a weekly way, Then you see what is the situation of this assembly resource by week. It looks like you have serious problem with the capacity, at least to manage this huge forecast, for example, I have created. This is the situation in this machine, this is the situation in this another one, and this is the situation in another one. If you click by month, then of course you will see a different result. If you click in any one of the bars, you double click here, then you will see, oh, okay, this is coming from a sales order, or this is coming from another place. Let me click here. Okay, and if you see here, there is a green value because there is, of course, a sales order for one of the items that is affecting the capacity of this resource. I haven't created any work order. No matter of that, MRP is able to show you what is the planned situation of your resources because of forecast of sales order. Of course, if you now create one work order, then you will see similar information but in a blue color. So once you run the MRP, then MRP is able to show you what is the situation you have here. Remember, MRP is not APS. MRP is making a backward calculation by default, but it's not considering if the resources are busy or not. For that reason, once you make the MRP calculation, you can see clearly an overloading of the resources. And then to balance this situation, then of course you need APS, the additional module for advanced planning and scheduling. If I close here, then now I will have a look at the order recommendation screen, where we see the full balance of all the items we have. So first we see here is we have 3 tabs, all the items, purchasing items, or production items. If from the all items screen, of course, I can manage purchase item and manufacturing or production items. If I go to purchase items, then this is only purchase. And if I go to production, then this is only production. Let's keep at the level of all items, okay? First, I would like to show you is, for example, industrial unit. You see here in the industrial unit, I have a sales order, and I had a forecast created by weeks, but because I wanted to summarize the result, then the system only show me the balance or the demand is coming from this forecast I have created, but in a monthly way. If I come back and edit here and click here and put it normally, okay, and then okay, and let's make a new calculation. By the way, the calculation of the MRP is a in-memory calculation. This is happening since years. In order to have a better performance, we are using the RAM memory of the PC to improve, of course, the calculation. If I click now again in order recommendation, and now I go to P172, now you see a fully detailed demand coming from the forecast, but all the weeks are here. And of course, you see, well, this is the sales order we already have in the system, which is reducing the quantity we need for our forecast. It's also considering what time is in the month and also reducing the quantity for this week in the forecast. If I go instead of the P172, I go to the frozen beans. This is the one I have included in the MPS. Now you see this is MPS. This is not a normal forecast. We have 500, 500, 500, and 500. But what happened with the sales order? Because this is an MPS item, we are not considering it in the MRP calculation, okay? Because we simply focus on the master production scheduling, okay? Okay, now let's have a look at the, for example, let's make a simple calculation. I will edit my scenario again. I will delete the MPS and I will delete the forecast. The way to do that is by clicking in the X here, okay? Then update. So I will simply focus on the sales orders. So let's calculate again, and let's have a look at the result. Here is the result, and here we see in this case, now we don't have any MPS included, so then the system for the frozen beans is simply able to give me a normal standard result. If I go to industrial unit, then you see I need this quantity here. I need 20 pieces, and the system say, well, we need that item for 22nd of the month. To have it on 22nd of the month, then I need to create a work order on 20 of the months. So if I cancel here and I go to the sales order, by the way, I can open the sales order directly. I will do it from there, directly from the MRP by clicking in the right button. Click here, right button, and then you see sales order open 380, and there is it, okay? Then we had it on 23rd of the month, but the system is considering 22nd because of that security time or average time I have included in this setting. What about the frozen beans here? This one is for 29 of the month. The cycle time here is quite short, so the system is telling me, well, you can create a work order at this in the same date. And then if I go to the other items, then because of the lead time, then you see what about the recommendation when to create the purchase order. So let's have a look at the results here. For example, this spool of sacks, the delivery time is 7. We don't have any minimum inventory level. I have 1 item on stock and I need 25 items. Balance is of course 24. So the system is recommending me to purchase 24 pieces. If I include, for example, a minimum inventory level, let's make this here. Let's go to inventory data and let's say minimum it's or requirement here it's 10, and I will also go to planning data and I say minimum amount it's 50 and order multiple is 5. Okay. So I click in OK, update, and let's make a new calculation to see how the system will provide now the result. Calculation is done. Let's have a look at the order recommendation. And then if I go to this one, you see MRP is telling me that I have now 10 units as a minimum inventory level. I have 1 on stock, and I need 25th. So the system is recommending me now 34, which is 10 more to cover the minimum inventory level. But if you go to the right, then you see those columns here, 20, 21st, 22nd, and so on. This is the week where we should make the purchase order. In this case, of course, we need to move before because of the minimum inventory level. We are below of the minimum inventory level, so the demand here is an immediately demand. But why 50? Because of the minimum quantity is 50. So MRP, no matter if the balance is 34, will recommend us to purchase 50 pieces. Okay, and if I try to purchase, let's say 52, which is more than the minimum inventory level, more on the minimum order, but it's not a multiple of 5. So I will get a pop-up message and tell me, hey, you should at least consider then, in this case, a multiple of 5. Okay, so if I, for example, now I have 2 different possibilities to create the purchase orders from here. I can simply double click in the, for example, in the sales order. I would like to purchase the 25, but now you see minimum purchase order quantity is a 50. Would you change it? If I click no, then I will keep on the level on 50. But if I say yes, then you see the system is changing now to 50 according to the minimum quantity we have here. Another way to make the purchase is if you go to one particular item, you can say to the system, show me the demand I need for the next, or what I need to purchase for the next 15 days. And then you see the full view for the next 15 days. What about the next 15 weeks? And then you see, okay, everything you need to purchase in this case until, for example, August. What about the items I need for the next 15 months, and then you go to the next year. Okay, so if I keep it in single, then it's done, and you are able to create purchase related with one sales order or related with one, in this case, or with a work order, okay? Another way to make a purchase is by simply clicking with the right button in the top. I would like to purchase everything I need for the week 20. In this case, I have two options here. I would like to purchase or I would like to produce, because I am in the tab of all items. If I am in the tab of purchase items, I will only see the quantity to purchase, okay? Or if I am in the production, then of course the quantity to produce. If I click here, show me everything I need to purchase for the week 20, then I have only this quantity and it's done. Another way to purchase is clicking in pre-assign. Pre-assign gives you the opportunity to define a range. For example, I would like to purchase everything I need for the next 20 days. This is valid not only for production, this is valid for purchasing, not only valid for purchasing, this is also valid for production. If I click here, then you see the system is considering all the balance for everything you need to purchase for the next 20 days. If I go to the right, then you see the quantities here, the balance. You see the price. This is because of the predefined supplier, but you can change the supplier and therefore to change the prices. If you click with the right button, according to the setting, you will see the catalog or you will see only the list of the full suppliers. You can change the dates and so on. Of course, if I click with the right button, we are able to click in Windows setting and then to activate or not some other values related with reservations could be, and many others you can consider here in the view. When you are, quite important is when you are purchasing more than one item, in this case I have 4 items and I have been using the pre-assign, you are only able to create a purchase request. There is no any chance to create a direct purchase order, okay? And in fact, if I click here, then this is what will happen, okay? Otherwise, if I come to the normal mode here and I say I would like to purchase only the quantity I need for the spool of sacks, then you see I have the possibility to create a purchase order, a purchase quotation in Business One, or a purchase request in the Beas purchase request screens, okay? If I click again in mode, then I will see the previous view. Something I didn't mention, and it's of course important, we have only like 4 or 5 items here to purchase. But if I click in filter, then in the case you have thousands of items, then of course you can filter by items, by employee, because there is a value related with item master data and the employees, material group, match code, which is in all the items, by a range of work orders, simple sales order, for example, a project in the case you have different projects, or also by default the MRP is giving you only items with a negative balance. But here you can say not only shortage, all the calculated items, and then you will see items with a green balance as well, okay? So in this case, I will simply click in purchase order. Now you see it is of course important to have the price and the supplier to be able to proceed with the purchase requirement. Otherwise, the item will not be included. Then I click in yes. And then the system is now creating the purchase request. Purchase request is summarizing all the items you would like to purchase for each supplier. In this case, I have only one supplier, so all those items are related with the supplier. And I have only one user for purchasing. If I have different users, then it is like some companies, especially big companies, one user could be responsible of some item groups and another user is responsible for some other item groups. So the users are able to filter by the items they are responsible for. Now, in the purchase request screen, you can do, for example, double-clicking row bins, because I am now the purchase leader and I will not purchase these items to this supplier. I will change to this one, HB. The reason is because those guys will give me a better price, but then the quantity should be 70, but then they are also able to give it, but they have a problem with the date, they will give me the quantity on 20 of the months to one particular warehouse. I can relate it with the project, a distribution rule, and so on. If I click now in OK, now you see we have those three items related with the FART is import, and if I click in HB, then this is it. If I click now in create purchase order, I can create a draft or I can create a purchase quotation in Business One. If I click in create purchase order, then the purchase order for raw beans and HB supplier will be created. And for those are market, you can keep some items not market, then this purchase order will be created. Of course, if you say here, don't forget the woven sacks, okay, and then now I create a purchase order. We will see first, we see the balances has been updated, okay, we see 0, 0, and so on. This is because one of the settings I showed to you before to update the calculation in the view. If I click here in mode, and I select, for example, any item, and I click in inflow and outflow screen, now you see the purchase order that has been created, in this case for HB. If I click with the right button, then I can open directly from here the purchase order in Business One. If I go to another item, this is FAR is import, this is, have a look here, position 3, position 2, and position 1. Okay, this is because of different lines in the document. If I click with the right button and then I click here, then you see the quantities, the dates were calculated by the MRP, and the remark, don't forget the woven sacks. Okay, so in this way we can create or purchase orders, or we can also create purchase requirements, and then from those purchase requirements different documents. Now, what about the production items? If I go, for example, to this tab here, and I would like to create for this sales order, I would like to create a work order. Of course, I can simply go to the sales order. Here it is, and click with the right button, and then it's done. Here I can create a work order. If there is a new calculation because of an engineer to order business process, MRP is able to consider the details of this new calculation instead of the standard structure of the item. By coming back to my screen, of course I can create the purchase, the work order from here. I can create by clicking, double click here. I can create one specific work order for 50 for this particular sales order. I can create a link. If we have the reservation system activated, then the system will automatically create a link between the work order and the sales order, and the reservation will be applied. So at the end of the production, the system will reserve the items are produced only for this particular sales order. So the reservation is also affecting here. So from here, I can create a work order, or I can create a production demand. If I create, for example, a work order here, you see the work order is now created. The system is showing me the screen of the work order. This is a work order created. Type of work order is sales order according to the setting in production. There is, of course, the possibility to create all the types of work order you need. You can relate this with a standard priority or another one, and so on. And you see the calculation is updated, and you have here your work order. If you click with the right button, then you can open the work order or this production structure, and so on. Another way is, of course, if I click in the industrial unit, and then I can use, if I click in mode, and then I have pre-assigned, instead of purchase, then I have production. So I can create all the production orders I need for the next 20, 30 days, or the number of days I mark. Otherwise, I click in mode again, and then I do double click here. Of course, you can change the quantity, you can change the dates or other values, and you can create a production demand. Instead of a production order, then a production demand is created. From this screen, then you are able to open the production demand or the production request screen. If I click here, now I have the production demand. And if you have, and then from here you select the line and then you create individual order or summarized orders or others. If you would like to summarize orders, you can click with the, imagine I have different lines, you click with Control and then click with the mouse and select different lines, and once the lines are highlighted in blue, then you click in Summarize it or Merge depending on what you need, okay? So let me, for example, to show you something, of course, also important here. If I, let me do something, let me open this. I will simply delete this one, okay, which is also possible. I will come back to my sales order. Let me come to the B1, and then I say this is, for example, 100 pieces. Okay, I don't have any stock. And then the delivery date will be 30 of the month. Then I will update this. I have some credit problems here, it's done. And then I will directly, in this case, for example, create the work order from the sales order. Work order has been now created. If I click with the right button, then you see the work order 375 is here available, not for 30, but then to 29 because of the time I have marked. Then you see here the system is calculating when to start with the work orders, what about the time of the different operations, and what about all the materials I need. The materials in this item are related with the operations. For example, to make this subassembly, those two first items are related with the first operation, and the other items are related with the second operation. In the same case with the other items. For example, metal pipe is related with the first operation that should happen between start on 23rd of the month and finish on 26th of the month. And then welding with some other materials and so on. If I go now to MRP, because I wanted to show you how the system is making the calculation of the purchase dates and when the material I needed, then let's go to the order recommendation. Okay, then for example, if I go to wire optical, this one here, I have already a purchase order could be, but then I need some additional materials. If I come here, I see I need in total 200. Is because of this work order. Some quantity is already coming here, but then the system is telling me, well, you need to have this item on stock on 26. Why? Because it's the time when I need it according to the work order is already created. And to have those items on 26, then you need to make the purchase order on 15 of the month. This is today, so we are late, and for that reason, then we put this value in a red color. Could be today or could be even before. It depends on the lead time. We will not give you a previous date than today. But it's red, so you have a problem here. What about, for example, let's have a look at contact housing. This is another material. I don't have anything on stock. There is 40 coming from a purchase order, and then I need in total 100. So the balance is to purchase at least 60 pieces. Here I can see I need this item on 27th of the month. This is according to the time in the operation in the work order. And then the system is telling me I need to purchase this on 23rd of the month. It looks like something more than 2 days. The reason is, if I click here and I say, okay, 27 is Tuesday. Monday is 1 day, 26. We are not considering the weekend. For that reason, then the system is recommending you to create the purchase order on 23rd. So then you see how the system is giving you the recommendation of when to make the transaction. It could be purchasing or it could be production in the same way in 1 week or another week and another week. Okay, so then you saw how the system is considering all the demand in the system depending on the business process. It could be from sales order, it could be from work orders, it could be for minimum inventory level, from forecast, from pre-calculations as well. All the values are considered in the MRP first, coming from master data of the items, later, of course, what are the variables would you like to consider in the calculation, define it in each one of the scenarios, but also what about the main settings in the MRP, in the configuration wizard, okay? And once the setting is complete, then now you saw how the system is making the calculations and how the system is showing the results, and how you are able to create purchase order, purchase request, production order, or production request. With this last part in the MRP screen, then we will finish with this webinar. And of course, we would like to thank you for your interest.